folks, so I recently finished doing a bunch of modifications to this. This is a Harley Benton CST 24T guitar kit, and I figured I'd hop online, share some thoughts about my experience building it, some of the modifications I did, and what I think about the final product. And of course, any of the modifications I did, all of the prices and links and everything will be down below. So we can start by going over the specs of this guitar, which I've pulled up here. It says the body that it came with was solid wood. It wasn't particularly descriptive. But when I looked on Harley Benton's website for other kits that they supply, most of their other kits are a Ringoss wood. I don't really know what this is, but I looked it up. It says it's a rosewood style wood. I've had no problems with it, no complaints. When I got the guitar, the body was really pretty impressive quality, pretty impressive grain, and that's kind of why I went for a semi-translucent finish. So the wood you get is, it's a nice weight, it's not too heavy, not too light, and it had a nice grain to it, high quality. It's a maple neck, and it's got even a nice binding on it, and much like the body, when I took this out of the box, I was impressed with the neck. I've done some other guitar kits before, and the necks that they've come with have been in kind of rough shape. This one, even up to the higher frets, up to the 24th fret, all of the fretwork is pretty well filed off, pretty well done, no real complaints. It's got an amaranth fretboard. Again, no issues with this. It's a cheaper guitar, you're not gonna get some crazy expensive fretboard, but this one, honestly, it's been totally fine. It's a bolt-on neck, of course. It's got dot inlays, 24 frets, which is pretty cool. It's got a 42mm nut width, 25-inch scale length, humbucker pickups, of course. These aren't the original, these are ones I replaced. A 3-way switch, a volume and a tone pot. Let's see if I can get that on camera. Volume and tone. And then, of course, a tremolo arm, CST tremolo. You can get this kit as a hardtail as well. So let's go ahead and get into building of the instrument. So putting it together really didn't give me that many issues. There were some small issues, but nothing I couldn't fix with just some basic tools. So that's definitely a pro. Finishing it was relatively easy. Like I said, let me move the guitar to this side so you can see it better. The body, the wood quality it came with was very good. I was pretty impressed. The neck was in good shape. So I didn't end up doing what I originally planned, which was to have a much deeper blue finish. So I stained the body with just a blue stain. I'll put the information for what I used. It was just a can of stain that I got at Lowe's. I put on like 2 light coats of stain and a couple coats of clear coat out of a spray can, and that was pretty much it. And I think it looks pretty good. It did say in the instructions when you got it that it comes with a light sealant on it to protect it in shipping, so I sanded that off beforehand. And the neck on the back of the guitar I left unfinished. Again, like I said, because it was in great shape, I didn't want to mess it up, so I didn't really do a whole lot to that. The headstock I painted as well, same as the body, light sanding, put a couple coats of stain on it, and then clear coat. So that was pretty much finishing the guitar. Let's get into assembly. So one small issue I had in assembly was the neck pocket where the neck attaches to the body was pretty tight. Nothing too crazy, so I took a medium grit sandpaper and just sort of sanded out the pocket on the body, and then the neck went in. Still pretty snug, but I didn't feel like I was forcing it in as hard. When I was attaching the neck on, because this is a PRS style guitar, that means that the neck actually has like a little wooden lip or a wooden shelf on it that the neck pickup attaches to. So when you're attaching the neck onto the body, these 2 top screws are actually longer than the 2 bottom screws. So 3 of the screws went in totally fine, and then this screw on the body, the hole that was pre-drilled in the neck was just a hair too big, and this screw didn't really grasp in there, didn't hold. So I put some toothpicks in the hole and some wood glue, let that sit, and then I put the screw in and it was totally fine. And I haven't had any issues with it. Also, when I was putting the neck on, I believe it was this dot inlay. It fell out of the neck. Again, I assume it dried out in shipping. It did come from overseas. I put just a dot of super glue on it and popped it back in, and no issues since. A small note, most of the plastics the guitar came with, so the pickup rings, the stock pickups, and the little tips that go on the tremolo arm and the switch were this nice cream white color, which worked pretty well for the finish I had. And then the other plastics, which I unfortunately don't have a picture for, like this, I painted these, but these were all black. And I thought that just kind of looked bad. It clashed with the other colors on the guitar. Not a huge issue, but it was just weird to me that half the plastics they included were one color and half the plastics were others. Because of the price of this guitar, I'm assuming they're just taking parts out of a bin and sending it to you, so not a huge deal, but something to expect. Like everything else, I sanded the plastics pretty lightly that I wanted to paint. Did a couple coats out of a spray can and then a couple coats of clear coat, and I think they match a lot better now. The electronics the guitar came with all worked perfectly fine. There weren't any soldering issues I had to touch up, no grounding issues or any of that. So that was good. In the pickups it came with, again, not these, I replaced these, but the stock pickups it came with had like a cool plug system, so you just kind of plugged them in. There's no soldering, no work. It was very easy to hook all that up. So I want to get into the modifications I did, but first off, none of these modifications were required. What you get out of the kit is more than playable. So if you're just looking for an instrument, you can just have around, something fun to play. If you're, really just playing as a hobby, what you get is totally fine. Some of the stock components are a little cheap given the price of it, and so if you're looking for a mod platform, this is a great choice and you can do a whole lot with it. So the first issue I noted with this guitar and the first changes I made were related to the tuning stability. It wasn't terrible. If you set up the tremolo correctly, tuning was all right. If you played for a prolonged period of time and you really were, wailing on the whammy bar and stuff, it would start to go out of tune. So I did a couple things to fix that. The first thing I did, and was pretty easy, was I replaced these bridge saddles. I'll have some close-ups of this. These were cheap bridge saddles I found on Amazon. They have little rollers, so they might improve the tuning stability a little bit. The saddles the guitar came with were honestly perfectly fine. They probably weren't the source of the issue, but I thought these looked cool, so I replaced them anyways. The springs for the tremolo I also replaced. Again, like the bridge saddles, I'm not so sure this was the source of the tuning issue. The springs it came with were pretty tight on the tremolo arm when you used it. I prefer mine to be a little looser. I had some springs laying around from when I replaced them on a made in Mexico Strat I have back there. You get some extras, but those are something you can go online and find. They're pretty cheap. The biggest change I made for tuning stability, and what probably was the cause of the issue and what helped, was replacing the nut of the guitar. So the one it comes with was a plastic nut, and it really wasn't cut that well. This was probably like the worst finished piece of the guitar that you got. It was just, a cheap plastic nut, wasn't very well cut, the strings weren't really in the correct position, and it sounded like the strings really got, caught on the nut as they moved around. So I ordered these bone nut blanks on Amazon. These were pretty cool, and really the process of replacing the nut wasn't too hard. I took off the truss rod cover, and then that gave you a little space under the nut to kind of get some pliers under there and pop it right out, not a big deal. And then I took a day of very slowly and methodically just filing down the nut, sanding it, and doing one string at a time with these very small files I had. So certainly something you can do, just require a little bit of patience. I definitely think it helped though. The plastic nut it came with, the strings sounded kind of dead, like they didn't really resonate in the nut very well. This bone one, it sounds much chimier and brighter. I'll have some audio samples for that. But yeah, I think it sounds a lot better, and it really wasn't that hard to do, and I even think it looks a lot cooler. So another thing I replaced were the pickups. Again, stock pickups it came with were fine. They're cheaper pickups, of course, but if you're just, looking to have a fun little guitar to play around with, they'll do the trick. They were a bit harsh sounding, especially on the bridge pickup if you had the tone all the way up. It was really bright, almost too much. So I went online and found these cheap Wilkinson pickups. I didn't want to spend too much on pickups because the guitar would have probably been worth less than the pickups at that point. But these were a pretty good balance in terms of price, and a cool part of these were the pickups the guitar comes with are 2-wire pickups. The ones I got are 4-wire, which means you can coil split them, which was another modification I did, and I'll get into that later. I did replace the tuners on the guitar. I found, again, I'll put the links below, these cheaper locking tuners on Amazon. They were a complete drop-in replacement. I didn't have to do any drilling or anything to get them to fit. They worked totally fine. The tuners it came with were mostly fine, like you could get the guitar in tune. 2 of them felt like they were a little crunchy, like the gears weren't cut quite correctly, and it made me suspicious that they were slipping a little bit. So that was a little modification I did. Probably not required, but these definitely feel a lot better. Another smaller item, I put on strap locks on the guitar. That's the wrong horn. Strap locks on the guitar. The buttons it comes with, totally fine, totally usable. I just like strap locks. And so that takes us into the last modification I did, and probably the hardest one was I put in a coil split. So I can split these humbuckers into single coils in all 3 positions. Mainly this was hard, 1, because I was pretty bad at soldering, and 2, I had some trouble finding a wiring diagram. If you want, I can give a specific diagram of the wiring and how I did it. I can post that if anyone asks for it in the comments. Otherwise, I'll link the wiring diagram I used to sort of figure it out. This really wasn't required. The humbuckers it came with were fine if you're just playing around. They don't need to be split. It was just an extra feature I wanted, something I've been wanting on a guitar for a while, and this was a great platform to try it out on. You can get those types of switches really cheap if you're buying them direct. I'll post the one I found on Amazon. Pretty cheap, pretty easy to get. So my final thoughts on the guitar, was it worth it? That's subjective. That's going to depend on what you want out of the instrument. For me, it was. I'm probably $250, $300 into the instrument with the cost of the kit and the material and all the parts I got for it. So if you're just a beginner player and you're looking to get a guitar you can play as fast as possible, it's probably going to be much more worth your time to go get a Squire, an Epiphone, or even one of the guitars pre-built from Harley Benton. There are all sorts of cheap guitars you can find online now that are going to be great quality to start with. If you want a project that you can invest time in, you can learn on, this is a great option. The quality of materials you get are really pretty good. Like I said, the wood, the body, the neck, I was impressed with everything I got. And to me, this is a really valuable guitar now. I put a lot of time and effort into it. I know all the ins and outs. And it's really versatile, and honestly it plays pretty well. It plays almost as good, if not just as good, as the Mexican Strat I have, which is like a $600 instrument. So, I'm at half the price of that, and I have more features. So yeah, that's it. Let me know if you have any questions about the build or any of the things I did. I'd be happy to answer them. And let me know if you want to see me review anything in the future.